prominent one is the KCR fund, which is the Doug Casey, Rick Rule, American Katusa fund. We are 100% focused in the commodity space. We're a couple $100 million under management. And so Marin thought it'd be a good idea for me to give a little talk about 10 questions for your broker. It's not just questions, but it's reasons to have one. I'm sort of going to walk through why it's a good idea and some of the things that you should be asking your broker if you have one, or this will enlighten you to maybe go get one in the future. My background is actually I was a professional trader for 6 years, and so I have a pretty good understanding of trading, and I sort of didn't really think that I needed a broker to execute trades. And as I discovered, a broker actually is a lot more than just executing a trade, and so I'm going to walk you through that. So the first question you should probably ask your broker is, why didn't you get me into Hive? Unfortunately, I did not get into Hive either, but there's a few more other important questions that you want to be asking other than that one. And so the first thing you want to ask your broker, or if you're going to buy, or if you're going to get a broker and you're shopping around, is market access. And what I mean by that is access to the TSX Venture, the Big Board, the TSX, and the CSE. If you're Canadian, it's a lot easier. Just about everybody has access to these markets that I talked about. But if you're an American, it's actually much harder, and a lot of American brokerages do not have access to the TSX Venture. Through our retail subscription, we get emails all the time from subscribers asking about, oh, I can't buy the stock because my brokerage house won't let me. And sometimes that's because they have a discount broker, or sometimes their broker isn't qualified. And so that's a question you want to ask is, do you have direct access to buy on the TSX Venture, the CSE, and the Big Board? Sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, we do, but really what they're actually doing is they're buying the equivalent stock on the OTC bulletin board, which is not the same. It's not a primary listing. There's not nearly as much volume. It's very hard to buy a large block of shares. So that's question number one, is do you have direct market access? The second reason you should have a broker, and the second question you should ask, is about deal flow. What is your access to deal flow like? That's how Marin and I have built our funds up over the years, is through deal flow, and that's done through brokerage houses and asking your broker what deals are going on, what's going on in the sector. And so you have to ask for this. They're not just going to put you on an email list and say, oh, we're going to do this deal. You have to ask for it, and you don't want to be afraid. Don't be shy. Just because you're not a $20 million account doesn't mean you can't get access to the private placement like anybody else, but you have to ask for it. So deal flow is crucial. Research reports are one that probably a lot of people forget about. There's 800 companies out here. It's almost impossible to do due diligence on all of them. But if you have a brokerage house, they have a team of analysts like myself who are doing due diligence on all the mining companies out there. So you can read their reports for free. That's just part of the service that the broker offers. But you have to ask for that as well. It's not expensive, and once again, you don't have to be afraid because you're not a big account, but you have to ask for that. And it's just an email distribution. It's super simple, and it provides you with a lot of information that you wouldn't necessarily get. Trading and execution is another important one, and this one sort of I struggled with for quite a while. Being a professional trader, I thought, oh, I can easily trade my way, no problem. But if you're not in front of the computer all the time, how are you going to execute a trade? And so these guys, remember, they work for you. You're their client. So you want to inform them of things you want to be doing, companies you want to be buying, and they'll do it instantaneously for you. You don't have to go and log into your account and find it online and look up the ticker symbol. All you have to do is make a phone call, and that's what they're there for. And so you have to ask. That one's not an ask. That should be mandatory. That's what every broker should do for you. Another one that's quite important is price and trading alerts. And so that one's once again, where they're actually working for you. And so things like tax loss selling, you can ask them to identify targets for you. You can ask them for alerts on, okay, if a stock goes below a certain price, I want to buy it. Once again, this is about them working for you, and it's a service that they're providing. Remember, they're getting a percentage of this trade, so they want to get you invested in the market. But you have to ask for it. This is one that probably gets almost no attention, that really should be at the forefront of everything, and that's stock segregation. And we actually went through this ourselves with Northern Dynasty last year. And so what stock segregation means is your stock is actually put in an account where essentially you have physical delivery of your certs, of your share certs. And the reason for that is because then your stock can't be borrowed. And if it can't be borrowed, that means your stock cannot be loaned out to somebody else to short the same company. And that's what happened in Northern Dynasty. where brokerage houses were loaning out their stock to other people, and we were unknowingly doing that. All you have to do is ask. It's, once again, a question for your broker. You have to ask, make sure my stock is segregated so it cannot be shorted. If you're going to be a serious investor and you're going to participate in private placements, you ideally want to get a warrant, right? That's what everybody wants. Without a broker, it's very difficult and very time-consuming to exercise your warrants on your own. I tried to do it initially when I started out. I was like, oh, I'll do it myself, no problem. I can fill out the paperwork and go to the bank and all that kind of stuff. But it's a lot harder than it initially seems. There's a lot of paperwork, and there's a lot of time involved to do this. So I have my piece of paper in front of me, and I say, okay, well, I want to exercise my warrants because the stock's gone up, and I want to cover. Okay, fine. So then I have to go to the bank, and I have to get a draft, and then I have to take the draft and the paperwork over to the company and put it on the secretary's desk, who will then say, okay, yeah, he wants to exercise his shares. Then goes to CompuShare. They issue some share certs. They're mailed back to me, and then I take them to the bank and I deposit them. And this process is ridiculous. It would take weeks. If you have a broker, it's all done for you, and that's one of the big perks of having it. Are there any Americans in the crowd today? Oh, count yourself thankful then. So Americans have what's called a legend attached to all of their warrants. And essentially it becomes a restricted security. And so you can have up to a 6-month hold or to a 1-year hold on these warrants. And it's an extremely long process to take care of by yourself. And that's another main reason you should have a broker to do all this for you. It's an opportunity cost. And that's really the big thing that I think about here is a time value of money for yourself. You're not necessarily going to be in front of the computer all the day, 24 hours a day while things are trading. This guy is going to work for you. You want to have somebody take care of this for you. You don't want to be dealing with this on a regular basis. So this is a pretty good example of a walkthrough of why you need a broker, actually. And so what I've done, this is actually something that I did. This is a company. I took the prices off, so I'm not naming the company and whatnot, but this is something that I executed on fairly recently. And so that's a share price chart, and you'll see that there's actually some breaks in the graph. And the reason there's breaks in the graph is actually because it doesn't trade any volume. And so this was a company we had invested in years ago that hadn't really done anything. The company hadn't fulfilled their promises on what they were going to buy. They were trying to buy an asset. They couldn't do it. And the company just kind of sat there and did nothing. And so eventually I sold my shares and went about, didn't think about it any longer, until one day where all of a sudden there was a massive amount of buying in 2 days and the stock tripled. I went, well, that's interesting. And I did my research and I looked at it, and there's no public news. There's nothing going on in the market. They hadn't done any of their old promises, so I didn't see any real reason the company should have just tripled in value overnight. And I looked at the buying and I went, oh, it's just one guy who's just buying a block of shares. So I made one phone call to my broker and I exercised all my warrants. And that's that green circle there, that's at the top. Since that time, obviously the stock has come down because they haven't actually done anything, right? There's nothing actually tangible here. And so it's an opportunity cost of things that you're missing out on. And so likely the stock is going to have drifted back down over the next few weeks. And remember, if I had tried to organize all these warrants myself and taken it to the bank and done this whole elaborate dance, I would still be in the position, and I wouldn't have capitalized nearly as well on the opportunity as I had before. And so that's something you really want to consider moving forward. This is precisely why you want to have a broker, and you can have alerts set up with them saying, okay, if X share or X stock goes to 30 cents or 50 cents a share, I want to be selling it. They'll have all that set up for you. You don't have to worry about it. And once again, you don't have to be a big account. You don't have to have a $20 million account to be important to these guys. These guys are competing for business. There's 10,000 brokers in Vancouver that are looking for work. They want to work for you. So here's a couple next steps that are happening in the brokerage industry. And so the big thing that each of you guys should be looking at doing, whether you have a broker or not, is negotiating the cost on a per trade basis. So Marin and I, through the fund, we pay 0.25% of the transaction value. That's extremely, extremely low. And that's because we do a ton of volume. We're a monstrous firm. Whoever manages our money is the biggest broker in the city. And we have multiple brokers. And if you have a big account, I suggest you do that as well. But you're not going to get a quarter point. But you also don't have to pay the 1% that's written on the piece of paper when you're signing your account form. So ask for less. Ask for 0.5%. Ask for 0.6. That's attainable. You can get it. I did it. And I went in there before anybody knew that I was Marin's guy. I went to a random broker who I wanted to take care of some things for me, and I negotiated my way down. And you can too. You just have to ask for it. The second thing that's happening is a really interesting and exciting development in the industry. And that's that one of the Vancouver brokerage houses that we've consulted with for the last few years is actually going to become a clearinghouse as well. And this is a big deal because it'll speed up efficiency in transactions and transparency for this brokerage firm. It's very exciting, and news should be announced in the near future once all the legal and compliance is done. But that's going to be something very important moving forward. A lot of American exchanges have clearinghouses. There's many of them, but there isn't really a quality one in Vancouver or in Canada yet, so this is a great step. And through our Katusa resource opportunities, retail subscribers, they'll also get some free trades through this group because we negotiated. We couldn't negotiate a 5-year warrant like we try to in all of our investment deals, so we negotiated for free trades for you guys instead. That's about it for my end. Like I said, I'm Marin's analyst. I've been on site visits all over the world. I analyze all the different sectors. And I think I've got a couple minutes before the next presenter comes up. So if there's any Q&A and you guys want to have any further discussion about anything or any stocks or anything that's happening out on the floor, the mic is yours and I'd be happy to answer what I can.